Well, hello, my name is Ted Gardner, and I'm an interviewer with the Public Library of Cincinnati and Hamilton County. This is all part of the Library of Congress Oral History Project, and I have the pleasure of interviewing William Hosmer this morning. And it's the 26th of July, 2007. Our camera operator is Dennis Daly, who is with the History Department of our wonderful library here, and very competent camera operator. And Bill, it's a pleasure. We met before when you were in with your brother-in-law, and I guess you decided to give it a try, huh?
Yeah.
If
I can remember anything.
Where were you born?
Bensenville, Illinois.
Illinois.
That's let's see, that's west of Chicago.
West of Chicago.
It's about 10 minutes from O'Hara, which was a cow pasture when we lived there.
Oh yes, I'll bet you remember that.
Yeah.
The land of Lincoln. Okay. So you went to elementary school there?
Yeah, I went there for about a year and a half.
Uh-huh.
2 years, and my dad lost his job during the Depression, so we came here, just what we had on our back.
Really?
Yeah, we came to Arlington Heights over in the valley.
Mm-hmm.
Just what we had on our back.
Isn't that something? Those were some days, weren't they?
Yes, they was.
Oh, I remember them very well.
We stayed with my dad's brother up in the attic. There were 7 of us, and we all lived up in the attic.
Good heavens. That's what you call a crowd.
Yeah.
Well, so tell me about your family. You had brothers and sisters?
I had my oldest sister. She's still living. She's going to be 86.
Wonderful.
And I had my oldest brother. He died. He was in the Marine Corps.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I had twin sister. She just died about 4 or 5 years ago. And I got a kid brother. He's still living.
Oh, isn't
He's about 7 years younger.
Wow.
He was a baby. He was born 31.
Right. Well, it must have been quite an experience to live in those days and be a part of a big family as well.
Well, yeah, we lived where the mafia was out in Bensenville.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, they had a big roadhouse. They had still there, and the feds come in and burned a couple guys alive in that big roadhouse, you know.
Oh, my goodness sakes. Did you go to high school there?
No, I only went to 2nd grade, and then we came here.
Then you came to...
I only went to the 8th grade. I quit school in the 8th grade.
I see. So after, well, then the 8th grade, shucks, you were only 14 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah. What did you do then?
Where is that?
After when you were 14, after you got out of the 8th grade?
Well, I drove truck for Bill Rumpke, the Rumpkes.
No kidding.
25 cents an hour.
You were a pioneer in that business, weren't you?
Yeah.
How much an hour?
25 cents.
25 cents. Oh my goodness! And you were driving a truck?
Oh yeah, loaded everything. That's when you had to throw it up over the side of the trucks and that. You know.
Isn't that
You
something?
put the truck in grandma gear, let it run down the street by itself.
What do you know about that? My goodness.
Yeah, I worked with the old man, the original owner, Bill Rumpke. This is his boys running it now.
Oh yes, of course.
I had 2 trucks.
2 trucks. Now they got a fleet.
They got about 600 now.
Oh my goodness sakes! Well, they do a great job too. It's a wonderful business.
They're great workers in Rumpke, all of them.
Oh, I know.
All those workers.
That's what I hear. That's just terrific. Well, so going along through the years, you worked with Rumpke up until the time you went in the service?
No, I worked at Wright's for 1 year when I went into the service.
Uh-huh.
And then went into service and I come back and worked for a paper company, worked for Crosley's. And
Okay.
then I went on the railroad in 46.
46.
47.
47, right
Yeah.
after the war. Right. What did you do at Wright Aviation, the Wright aircraft?
I was running a lot of different machines, and then we made the main drive pinion gear
Oh.
for the engine, propeller
I'll be
engine.
darned, yeah.
Then I buffed and run a grinder and Vormatic and everything, all phases.
So you helped make the famous Wright engine.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Isn't that something?
Yeah, we had the main drive gear. It was a 10-inch drive gear.
Uh-huh.
At that time, it cost $350 to make.
Oh boy. Well, what changes we've seen, right?
Yeah, right.
Okay, then, and that was just before you went into the service,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I went into service from Wrights. I come back and he was closed.
Right, exactly, exactly. Okay, so what happened? Your number came up, or you volunteered?
No, I was turned down in 1942 because of my weight.
Uh-huh.
I weighed 105 pounds. A year and a half later, I weighed 106. But I was working in a pony cake, and I kept bragging to this guy they'd never get me because I wanted to get in, you know. He was on the draft board, him and his sister. And he always reminded me after I come home about not going into service, you know. How I said I'd never get in there, you know. So. But I got in.
Boy, oh boy, 106 pounds, how
Yeah.
about that? Well, so where were you sent first off?
We went to Joseph T. Robinson, Arkansas, about 7 miles from Little Rock. That's where I trained.
Mm-hmm. Now this was Army?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Alan and I went to Columbus to be sworn in, and then we went to Indiana,
Right.
Fort Benjamin Harrison.
Yeah.
And then from there we went, well, he went south and I went to Little Rock.
You went to Little Rock.
That's where I trained to come back, and then I went back, went to Washington, D.C., Fort Meade, Maryland.
Now, what kind of Army training were you involved in? What?
Just infantry.
Infantry.
Armored, just
Yeah.
infantry.
Okay.
Basic training, 17 weeks.
The infantry, the queen of the Army.
Oh, you did walk.
You do a lot of walking, don't you? You learned to march and
Yeah.
counter march and
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff.
Well, it was nice when they'd have them big parades, you know.
Oh,
big
yes.
bands and everything. The whole division, about 16,000 men, you know.
Right. Very impressive. Very impressive.
See the general viewing you know, and all that.
Oh my golly, isn't that something? Okay, so then you went. You said to Fort Meade,
Yeah.
Maryland.
From there, we took a train to Boston, Massachusetts, got the boat, and then we went down the Hudson River and picked up the rest of the convoy at New York. We had 49 ships in the convoy.
Wow, that was a big convoy.
Yeah. Oh,
Okay, so we're talking now. What? 1943, 44.
no, 44.
44.
End of 44.
44.
End of 45, yeah.
Was that transport ship you were on? Was that a former ocean liner, or was
No,
it?
it formerly had been a pleasure boat. It's all paneled and everything, you know.
Oh my gosh!
It's, boy, that North Atlantic was rough, though. That's the worst storm there ever was. They had 25-foot swells and that, you
Oh,
know.
I know it. Terrible, terrible.
Wherever you walked, somebody vomiting all the
I
time.
know
Yeah.
It was tough on young fellows who hadn't had any experience like that
Yeah.
before.
I just got nauseated. I didn't get sick, but
Well,
you'd
you
be
were-
standing there and be trying to eat, and the guy'd be vomiting next
Oh
to you.
yeah, I know it. Yeah, those were trying times, you
Yeah.
might say.
Well, we was 12 days going over.
12 days.
Yeah.
Now that's not too bad.
Yeah.
Some of those convoys were much slower than that.
Well, we zigzagged quite a bit, had quite a few sub drills and everything.
Right. You didn't see any subs.
No.
You weren't attacked by any.
No.
But
we
everybody
we was more or less in the middle of the
of-
ships and
of the
everything.
convoy. Yeah. Well, that was some experience for
Yeah.
a young kid.
See, at the bow of the ships, they had converted aircraft carriers taking planes to England. You know, you see the bow of the ship go down, you could see the screws come out of the water. That's
Oh, I know it. Yeah. Yeah, that North Atlantic is a tough.
yeah, it's
tough.
one of the worst winters they had. You know.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this was the winter of '44 that you were going over,
Mhm.
and where did you land?
We landed at Le Havre, France.
Le Havre.
We could get in, kind of, those ships sunk in the harbor and everything.
Yeah.
And then they had built floating dry docks there, tank,
Mhm.
boxes, like metal boxes
Sure.
and everything.
Sure.
And then we was there we got in about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We laid around till about 1 o'clock in the morning, and they took us over to the train station. Get on the 40 and 8,
Mhm.
40 men or 8.
Yeah, 40
40 men or 8 horses. Yeah.
relics of the World War I.
Yeah, we 5 nights and 4 days going across France.
Oh, you went?
See, we was on the Belgian border when we went with the Bulge and that.
I see. So
we went to the Repo Depot and
all right. Were you in the Hurtgen Forest?
well, it was right there, which just
Right.
wound down there.
Right before the Battle of the Bulge.
Yeah.
Wow.
The division had been there, the rest of the division.
Yeah.
Because I
Now
didn't join it.
what division was this?
5th Armored Division.
5th Armored. Okay, so who was your commanding general?
Stimson.
Oh, Stimson.
Yeah. But,
Yeah.
the 5th Armored was the first Americans in Germany. They went to Luxembourg.
Right, right. Did you-
Siegfried line and everything.
Yeah. Were you, I'm trying to get it, because I was a Navy man, so, but was this part of the 3rd Army
Yeah, but
under Patton?
see, they trained in the Mojave Desert, the 5th Armored Division, and went up to England, and it was on the invasion, and then went across Europe.
Right. What kind of tanks did you have?
Sherman.
Sherman tanks. But
Yeah, we used to sandbag them and everything. And during a snowstorm, we whitewashed all the equipment. We had snow capes and everything to wear and that.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
that was cold, man. It
Oh,
was
man.
cold. It's about 14 below zero.
Yeah. And prolonged.
Yeah.
But this wasn't one day and then
No,
it
no,
warmed up.
no.
How about that? Well, tell me about your involvement there in that battle. Did you see the enemy?
Oh, yeah. I was from here to there, next to Germany. He was in full force, pine forest.
Right.
And the little clusters of forest and pine forest, And we was up on the Autobahn and about 70 mile, and the Germans was 70 mile behind us cutting our supply lines. So we had to go back and encircle the Panther Division in the woods there. And of course they was throwing artillery and hitting the tops of the trees and everything.
Sure.
But the Germans was right in there, and you could see them, but you had orders to hold your fire and everything, until you get orders and that. And then they called us out after they found out they couldn't get them. They called us out and they called in the fighter planes. So they could radio us in, but we couldn't radio out. So our lieutenant, he run out and left us in the woods, and you could see them fighter planes come down and firing and that.
Oh.
There was a drainage ditch and everything. I think there was 50 of us all trying to get in that drainage ditch.
And you wanted to pull it in over your head. Oh.
That was the advantage I had. I was small and didn't have to dig very fast.
Right.
Very deep for that.
I should say. So, and of course the Germans were throwing the ME-109s, those tremendous fighter planes that they had thrown at
Yeah,
you.
they had that 88, boy, they was good with that 88.
Oh, that 88. That was a terrible 88 millimeter cannon.
Yeah.
Wow.
See, we had nothing to compete with them. We only had a 75 at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Then we got the 90s towards the end of the war and
Right.
new tanks and everything. But we had to sandbag our tanks and everything. Our guns would just bounce off them.
Isn't
German
that
tanks,
something?
yeah.
Yeah, those Panzers were really tough machines.
Oh, they
weren't they?
scared you. You hear them at night.
And of course, they'd had a lot of practice in North Africa,
Yeah, right.
before they got back to France. How many men were in a Sherman?
Well, I wasn't in tank. I was in half track myself.
You were in a half track. Oh,
Yeah. And we had a 57 artillery piece,
I see.
anti-aircraft gun. It was like a bean shooter, in other words,
Well, a half track would carry personnel as well.
Yeah, well, there was 11 of us. Let's see, there was 10 of us, and then a driver, an assistant driver, and then the lead
Mhm.
sergeant,
Mm-hmm.
tech sergeant. Well,
Mhm.
sometimes they have a lieutenant with them in that.
Sure. Well,
We line up 6 on each side, and then we had about 60 rounds of ammunition on the floor, plus all the small arms and everything, their rations and everything. We got C rations, that. It was the top of the line rather than K rations.
Right. Well, it's just it's just amazing, and I know that your family is going to enjoy seeing this interview, and your friends as well. But for people today to realize what you fellows went through, what you were up against, it's almost incomprehensible today. You know, of course, we know about the terrible things that are happening in the Middle East and Iraq, and that's mainly urban fighting. You know, they're fighting building to building, and some in the desert. But to be in that cold weather.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was young. I wasn't married yet, and you didn't really care if you got killed. It was so cold, you know.
Gosh.
It felt like somebody sticking a knife in my back all the time. It was so cold.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Is that right? Did you suffer any from frostbite or anything?
Well, I didn't have my feet didn't get brown. They just got chalk white at you.
Yes, right.
But when we went across France on a train, when we got to the repo depot, there was about the fourth of the men had to go to the hospital. Some had their feet amputated and fingers amputated.
Yeah. Well, the rigors of that were just almost.
Well, people never know unless you know what war, how hell war is.
That's right. Well, and you know, it's so different today from that war.
Right.
Because you came from a supportive family. Most everybody was for the war, and the folks back home were supportive, and the war effort, the material that were being built here and everything to supply you fellas and keep you going and keep you alive. Tell us about the food situation. Chow.
Well, if you could ever get with the kitchen or that, or you generally ate K rations or that, you know, or C rations. We had a little better. When you get them C rations, it's a lot better than the K rations and that. It's in cans and boxes and everything.
I see. K rations were just kind of bare bone kind of stuff, huh?
Yeah, but what you ever got with the kitchen, they was selling everything on the black market, coffee and cream and everything.
Really?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Oh, for God's sake. So you had to shell out, huh?
Yeah.
And how much were you being paid at that time?
Well, I started at $50 a month. And then we got PFC, that was $54. Then of course overseas pay, you got $10 more. And then combat, you got $10 more.
So you're getting about $74 total. Good golly.
That's a PFC. So
yeah, PFC. Now
that's the bottom of the line almost.
Did you progress in rank?
No. That's it. We had too many other, like when the war ended, we had so many, they disbanded our division, so they had so many non-coms and everything.
Sure. Sure, I understand. Well, you got any funny stories to relate about particular instances that happened, or any confrontation with people or anything? Other
than the one that stood out in my life, that saw this German. Well, we went to this town, they had a big battle there, and we was going like on a road, and down on that road there was all Germans' bodies laying all down there.
Wow.
And there was like a hill, just like about like that, and there was a fence there. And this German was sitting there with his gun on his lap like that, and the only thing that was there was this cord sticking out. His head was going, he must have had an ear. You know.
Oh my heavenly days.
But, that stood out in my life.
Well, I'm sure you would never forget something like that.
Yeah. But you think, well, that's him, not me. You know, you didn't like it, but it's either him or you, you know.
Thank the Lord for that, I should say. Well,
but we caught one guy. I caught one guy hiding in a pig pen, a German, and another one we caught him home on furlough, was eating breakfast with his mother and dad, you know.
I'll be darned. So you got into villages and that sort of thing?
Pardon?
You got into villages?
Yeah. We spearheaded the armored division, see.
Oh, you did?
And we had 2 inter-divisions supporting us in that. We'd go by the towns and they'd mop up, you know. And that.
Right.
Yeah.
right.
The biggest place was Dusseldorf, Germany. That's where I saw the first German jet there.
Oh.
He shot down 3 of our P-57s just like that, you know. They had a dogfight right overhead, you know.
Wow.
And then, of course, we liberated Nordhausen with the 4th Armored Division. That's where they built the V-1 and V-2 rockets, and that was a big, they had a big concentration camp there.
Yeah.
And people emaciated and everything, you know.
You saw that?
Yeah,
You saw those people? They were slave laborers.
yeah.
Good heavens.
I remember this one Jewish fellow, when we liberated, he had a motorcycle. He was going back to France, so he wanted some gas. So we gave him a can of gas if we'd let us ride that motorcycle, you know. So time we got through, I don't think he had any gas left. You know?
I imagine not. I bet he was happy to hightail it out
Yeah.
of there and very thankful to the Yanks for helping him. My goodness.
Yeah, when I come back to the States here, down Fort Campbell, Kentucky, or not Fort Campbell, while there, and Fort Campbell and Fort Knox, the German prisoners, they was running the fire department and everything, you know.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
They liked it over here.
Oh, sure. They were safe over here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was talking to one, he thought sure when they had the Battle of the Bulge they was going to win the war.
Mm-hmm.
Well, nearly all the divisions lost 50% of the men that was on the Bulge.
Yeah, that was a terrible, terrible situation. And as you remember, the weather prevented our airplanes from from supporting.
Right.
Because the weather was so bad. But when that opened up, oh boy, those P-51s went in there. And
Yeah, we used to watch them bomber raids, you know, go over 500-600 plane raids.
Really?
Yeah. Well, we always liked that because they softened it up ahead.
Sure, sure.
Same way we sat behind the artillery, firing them 240s, 155s, and that. They fired them about 20 miles, you know.
Right. 20 miles?
Yeah.
My gosh. Now what?
We sat behind them trying to get some sleep, you know. They had them whole artillery barrage set up there, and they'd fire 1, fire 2. It'd just shake the ground and everything.
Oh,
you know.
my gosh. Now, how about your hearing? Did it affect your hearing at all?
No, on the railroad ruined my hearing.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I'll be darned. Well, you know, that experience that you've had and that you survived and praise the Lord for that. How about letters from home and V-mail and things like that?
Well, Mother never did write much of that, so my kid brother, he never did pay much attention.
Mm-hmm.
He was so young then, you know.
Well, yeah, he was young.
And then, of course, my brother, he was in the 1st Marine Division. He was over in the Pacific.
He was in the Pacific?
Yeah, he was with the 1st Marine Division.
1st Marine
He was
Division?
on Guadalcanal.
Guadalcanal.
He spent 42 months over there.
Isn't that something? Yeah. That is something.
I always call him the glory grabber. You know, the Marines got credit for everything. My buddy, he was in the infantry division in Bougainville, and he said they did all the fighting, the Marines got all the credit.
How about that? Yeah, that Solomon Islands campaign was a terrible campaign, I know. Well, I know, the Marines, they had pretty good public relations people, you know, and of course, their dress uniform was a knockout, you know. And,
I don't know, the Air Force had some pretty nice outfits.
Oh, I'll say they did. They really did. Yeah, that's right. Did you fly at all? Were you up in a military plane at all?
I never flew until I was back in civilians. I was 60 years old the first time I was up in an airplane. But I loved it.
Now, I do too. How far into Germany did you get?
We went all the way to the Elbe River. Our orders was to go to Berlin, but they stopped us at the Elbe River. They wanted to let the Russians in there.
Yeah. That was a big political.
We sat there the night the war ended, and the sky was just nothing but red from where they was bombing and artillery and everything.
Fires.
The city, yeah.
My gosh. So You mentioned Dusseldorf. Was that the biggest city that you
Yeah.
got into?
One of the, what is that, Cologne, Aachen, Düren,
Oh,
Kassel.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And then, of course, we went to, the British were strapped up in Norway, and they was going to send us up there. What we did was, it was 500 miles. They said, if you break down, just stay where you're at.
Uh-huh.
So we got to Herleen, Holland, and that's where they stopped us. Somebody else had went up and rescued them, you know. So that's where we met the British, and they was laying these airstrips. You know,
Okay.
they said, hey, bloke, you want to cut spot a tie? Don't be drinking tea and that.
I'll bet you weren't a tea drinker before that.
No. No, we always look for the wine and cognac.
Did you have any interaction with natives, the locals? Like
No,
the,
not too much.
the
No.
French or the Germans?
Most of them, they would evacuate the town, you know.
Yeah.
We'd send a flag, a jeep in with a white flag, see if they'd surrender. If they
Right.
didn't, then you pull back if
Pull
they
back.
fired on you. And
Got yourself out of
flatten
there.
the town, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
But we would spared sometimes 40, 50 miles. We was on that Autobahn with our tanks and that, you know.
Right.
We went 35, 40, 50 miles an hour on that Autobahn with
Isn't
them tanks in it.
Good golly, boy, that's a lot of power at that
Yeah.
kind of speed, isn't it?
Yeah.
And clanking
Yeah,
along.
they had twin 8-cylinder Dodge engines in them tanks.
Now, so on the treads, when you went on the highway, did you have rubber?
Yeah, that's rubber in it, you know.
You had rubber
It's
protectors
rubber
on that.
combination, rubber steel combination.
Yeah.
But most of it's rubber, basically, where they run on.
Right, right.
But we bogged down a lot when it rained or that, you know. The first time we jumped off, we was in the foxhole and got up early in the morning. They generally had a field service, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Germans, it rained all night. We was in them foxholes, you know. And we got out, pretty soon heard a boom, you know, heard that shell whistling in, you know.
Then you knew that.
And they was firing short, they couldn't quite reach us, you know.
Uh-huh.
So we took off in the tanks, and it was muddy and everything. We had to stay off the road because they had the roads mined.
Right.
They had them tank retrievers that pull them tanks out of that mud and everything. We was half the day getting maybe a half a mile, you know.
Yeah, that brings up a point. I wanted to ask you about mines and about how did you detect if there were mines in an area?
Well, generally, one run over them, or it was a little mine where you'd step on it, and they always told you to bend over and let it blow your leg off you, that, you know.
Yeah. Goodness.
Bouncing Betties, they called them. you know.
Bouncing Betties.
Yeah.
Yeah. The armament that the Germans had, what kind of rifle and...
Well, it was a little smaller. I had one. It was about the size of a carbine rifle.
Mm-hmm.
But they had the machine guns that fired 3,500 rounds a minute, you know.
Wow, 3,500 a minute.
Yeah, you got a lot of firepower. Maybe it's not accurate, but
Yeah,
it's enough to keep you down.
sure, I should say. You want to keep your head down behind something.
Yeah. If you're down, so you're going to be under the ground.
That's right. And did you dig foxholes?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there was enough bomb craters and foxholes you could jump halfway across Europe, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
How about that? And of course, in the bad weather, they'd fill up with rainwater.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. They tested a lot of equipment, new equipment and everything and that, you know. Yeah.
My goodness. Well, it's just...
That Dusseldorf, they had an airfield there, and that's where we were. That's where I saw them jet fighters and that. But they dropped one of them blockbusters there, right next to the barracks. They had 3-story barracks there. In that crater, you could set this whole building in there.
just wiped everything out.
Yeah.
Wow.
But they would run it with them bomb runs. They would, just to get like one rail line, they would maybe bomb maybe a quarter of a mile wide and maybe 20 or 30 miles, you know, distance. Well, you had 500, 600, 700 plane raids, you know. You watch them go over, and then we'd watch them launch them Germans launching rockets to England.
Right.
And then that
right.
buzz bomb, of course, that flew horizontal, you know.
Well, you know, you brought up an interesting point there about our planes. As the war progressed, we got stronger and stronger and stronger
Oh, yeah.
with our war production.
Right.
Whereas the enemy, as the war progressed, they got less and less and less because they.
Well, they didn't have no fuel or anything hardly, you know.
Right.
But they had superior equipment to
They
ours.
really did have great land equipment. Yeah.
That Tiger tank, boy.
Oh.
It'll scare you just to think of it, you know.
Yeah. Now that was bigger than the Sherman. Wasn't
Oh,
it?
yeah, a lot bigger, yeah.
And I wonder how many of a crew did that Tiger tank have?
I don't know. I didn't come in contact with it. But when after we knocked our half-track out, we had a ride up on our tanks, you know. Of
You
course,
had a what?
we had a ride on the back of the tanks.
Oh, I see, right in the back.
Until you got in close combat, then you got off. And,
Sure.
But it was nice. You got over that engine exhaust and the heat from it. You could stay warm.
Boy, oh boy, you were
You got
grateful.
the infrared, you know.
You were grateful for anything that
Yeah,
would
well,
help.
sure.
Well, I should say, so when the tank got so far, or the half-track got so far, then you guys would go, you'd jump
Well,
over?
when the Germans knocked our half-track, the lead tanks went ahead. They was about a half a mile ahead of us.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we was behind. We was getting bogged down in the mud and everything off the roads, and so they threw that first shell. They have these cow beats. They're like almost like a beet, and they raise it for their animals, and they store it. They build big mounds about 10 feet wide and about
Wow.
8 or 10 feet high. Well, we thought we got behind that, you know. We pulled up on it. It was just going to go around it. Well, the first round they threw it in, and it went over. It didn't only landed about that cover that far away. So we bailed out, and the Germans had just evacuated the trenches, and we crawled through water and mud and crap and everything, you know.
Wow.
And the next one hit the lead half track, and then he picked them off. There was 4 of them, you know. So they said, just stay where you're at until you send somebody to relieve you.
Sure.
So then they sent trucks, and they took us up to where the tanks was. We
Yeah.
rode with them till they issued us new half tracks and that, you know.
Now, when you say they picked the men off, our men off, that was with cannon fire?
With the 88, they was about a quarter mile up in the church
my
steeple, and
gosh.
that's where they was.
Oh, how,
But the lead tanks was ahead, and the Germans set up 3 of them 88s in like a triangle. And they let them come in. They really wiped them out, you know.
gosh, terrible.
Oh, they was good with that 88, them Germans.
Oh.
Jeez.
Well, the mortality rate in our men was pretty high, wasn't
Oh,
it?
yeah.
Now that's another subject. How about first aid, and how about your medics? Were they pretty prevalent? I mean, there was plenty of medical care on the battlefield, or?
You mean for ours?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
they were great people too.
Oh,
weren't
they was, yeah. And see, they didn't carry no sidearms or nothing until after almost the end of the war, when they started shooting at them and
Right.
killing so many of them.
Right. Well, now that's an interesting point. I didn't know that.
Yeah, they didn't carry no weapons at all at the first part of the war.
But I didn't realize that they eventually did.
Yeah.
Is that so?
Well, a lot of them was conscientious objectors, and they
Yeah.
used religious.
Sure.
And they went into medics, so they
Right.
wouldn't have to carry guns. And
Right.
that. But they
Well, I knew
started
that.
killing so many of them.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's terrible. Yeah, they were really greatly dedicated
yeah.
people, though.
Oh,
They were wonderful, wonderful people. Well, so you got as far as the Elbe River.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good sized river, too.
yeah. Well, we crossed the Ruhr first, and then the Rhine.
Oh,
We
you-
went across the Rhine River on pontoon bridge.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh,
We was south of, I can't remember that big bridge that was one of the last ones they blowed, you know. That's where the stronghold was.
Remagen?
No, it was up north further.
Oh.
But When we crossed the Rhine River, they was already starting to rebuild a railroad bridge to get across the river, for the railroad to get across. And we used to throw concussion grenades in the Rhine River to bring the fish up, you know.
Did you eat the fish?
Oh yeah, sure.
Cooked them up?
Yeah. Well, if you could build a fire, you couldn't hardly ever build a fire or anything,
Yeah.
you know. So.
Gosh. You guys had to be Boy Scouts and everything
Well,
else,
a
didn't
lot of the guys wanted to kill the deer. There was a lot of deer over there.
you? Yeah.
You weren't supposed to do it.
Weren't
Same way you couldn't fraternize with the
Oh,
civilians.
no. Did you experience anything with the natives when you came into a village or something like that?
Oh yeah, they was happy to see us.
They
you
were
know.
happy
A lot of them was a majority. You know,
Yeah.
you have always got that diehard group. You know.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, that Nazi spirit and everything was deeply embedded in a lot of people, wasn't it?
When we got that Nordhausen, that concentration camp there, after we liberated them, hell, all they wanted to do is dance all night and that.
Is that right?
After we liberated them.
My
Of course,
goodness.
then they were starting to send them back, these Russian, Poles, and all different people there. You know.
How about that?
That was a big place.
Thousands and thousands.
Yeah, they had a big rail yards, and they was loading. They had about a lot of them rockets on flat cars and everything. And then they launched them from flat cars and also from railroad cars. They'd elevate the flat cars, beds on the trailers and that. You know. They'd start sending them over about 9 o'clock at night. You could watch them send them B-1s over to England and that. You know.
Wow. Yeah, that was a terribly destructive piece.
You always had that one plane went over. We always called him Bed Check Charlie. Come over 10:30 at night. He was a reconnaissance plane, you know. And then, of course, the anti-aircraft, they used to set up them barrages in a circle like that. Well, they was using tracers at night, and of course, they'd start using them, and fighter planes would come over and send back information. They come over and they wipe them anti-aircraft barrages out, you know.
So that was a real fireworks display too, wasn't it? To see those.
And you watch them, big searchlights, you watch them for the planes and everything. You know.
Gosh. Well, it was a desperate time, I understand, and your participation in that and your spirit, I can tell from your spirit that you.
Well, I really had it nice, I think. I mean, as far as I didn't get wounded or anything. But
You were lucky.
Yeah,
Yep.
thank God for that, you know.
I should say so.
Other than like the froze to death, other than that.
Well, I'm glad you didn't didn't
Then I
have
come
that.
home and I take a job on the railroad working outside for 38 and a half years.
38 and a half years after the war.
Yeah.
How about that? Well, any other humorous experiences? How about making friends with your compatriots in the ranks? Did you make friends with anybody from other parts of the country, or?
No. Well, yeah, I had a guy from Syracuse, John Lamondes. He was a Greek boy. Yeah, he used to correspond in that. And then, of course, my buddy was Frank Palin. He was from up in New York, you know. He was a Polak. He could speak good Polish, so they used him for an interpreter.
Oh, I'll bet. He was a valuable.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about, have you had any reunions or anything
No,
like that?
we don't. Alan, his division always has one.
Yeah, I know it. Yeah.
Well, I guess kind of they dispensed their division right after the war so quick, you know.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right. Did you ever see Patton?
No.
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 Never got
I
close.
did see a couple colonels, and
Yeah,
they was always up in the Jeep lead the pack, you know.
sure.
Come on.
Now, when you got to the Elbe and you had to stop because of the politicians had made this
Right.
pact to let the Russians come into Berlin.
Well, the headquarters was there at the concentration camp, And they put us out about 30 miles away at a checkpoint. They give us a billet, took a home, and that's where we worked out of. We had nothing to do with the company command or anything,
Right.
other than orders of that.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Did you have an opportunity to, going back to the camp there at Nordhausen, did you have an opportunity to kind of mingle with any of the inmates that were released?
Not too much, because they was always out dancing. The morning they get through eating in the night, see, they had a lot of their families, and they just had bunk beds set up, and
Right.
and they had a sheet between each one for the different families.
Uh-huh.
And then in the morning they get through eating, they'd start dancing the rest of the
They
night.
were
Most of
so happy to be
Yeah.
relieved. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
They had some big women, I'll tell you that.
They had?
They had some big women.
I'll bet.
They could put them in front of a plow. They could pull a plow.
Well, that is just amazing. Through what you went, the things that you went through, and to be able to survive
Yeah.
and
I really enjoyed it. I mean, I never regretted it or anything.
I feel the same way.
Yeah.
I know your brother-in-law does too.
Yeah.
Same thing. It was an experience that, I
You can't only explain or that.
You can't.
Nobody can understand.
Nobody can understand it who wasn't there and didn't experience that. And it was a great time of our lives. We
It
were
was.
young,
Yeah.
and we felt
We
indestructible.
was wild,
Wild and indestructible, can't hurt me,
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
Well, that's why they like the young guys,
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, that's for
They
sure.
got that gung-ho, let's go.
You betcha. Well, that was, as we mentioned earlier, that was the spirit of the country too,
Yeah.
and all our service people had great support.
Right,
From
right.
not only their families, but from the
Yeah.
whole nation. Did you, tell me about your weaponry and so forth in this half-track. Do you think that our equipment was okay?
Well, it was for the time what we had and everything, yeah, but it was, the Germans was superior,
Mhm.
so
Mm-hmm.
you work with what you got, and that's all you can do.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like I say, in 75 and that, they just bounce off them Tiger tanks and that,
Gosh.
The only way you get them, either ram them or smoke them with phosphorus shells and that,
I see. I see.
or knock a track off. That's
Not the track off. I was thinking about
or
that.
get up and drop a grenade in the motor.
Yeah,
That,
immobilize them.
yeah.
Well, with that sort of a thing facing you now, how long were you at the Elbe before you were moved out?
Well, we was at the Elbe, and then we pulled a month and a half of occupation, and they sent 1,800 was our division back to the United States to train for the invasion of Japan.
Right,
Well, we got back and the war ended,
right.
but they had about 18 trains. We still went to California,
Oh, you did?
San Luis Obispo, California. We
How
stayed
about
there
that?
2 days, and then went back to Fort Campbell, Kentucky.
Uh-huh.
And then from there, he said, anybody want to go to Cooks and Baker School at Fort Knox? I said, yeah, I'll go. So we went up there because it was close to home. We could be home every weekend.
Sure.
So we spent, 2 months at Fort Knox there.
Well, I'll be darned.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you had a wide experience.
Yeah, I was about 17 different camps, all the rep depots and everything.
Is that so?
Yeah.
17.
Yeah, when we come back from overseas, we came to Camp Shanks, New York, and then we went to Indian Top Gap, Pennsylvania, come home on a furlough from there.
What kind of a ship did you come back across the Atlantic on?
I don't know, but the water was calm then. That was in July.
Oh, thank
It took us 7 days to come back.
7 days. Oh, boy.
But that guy in the Navy says, I never saw people eat so much bread and rolls and everything. He said, we're not used to having good meals today.
Right, right. Well, on the ship coming back, of course, or on going over, long lines and waiting in line to get to your chow and
No, not too bad. It
Not
wasn't
too bad?
We had a USO troop with us coming back on.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
They were on the ship with you?
Yeah, they took a lot of pictures. I was wondering if I could ever find out about them pictures, you know.
Sure.
With some of them tour girls and that, you know.
Oh, that was nice,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, we interviewed a lady several months ago who lives in town here, who was in a USO troop in the South Pacific, and she had some wonderful stories to tell.
Oh, that USO was great.
Wasn't that great, though?
Chicago was the best soldiers' town I believe there was.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, the USO, and for those who don't know, it does not mean United States, it's United Service Organization.
Yeah.
And of course, that was the
Yeah,
morale booster.
I still donate to them and that, yeah.
Oh, I do too.
I get letters from them.
Oh, yeah. Well, once you donate to them, you never get
I
off the
know.
mailing
You
list.
got everybody in the world on you.
No. Hospitalized vets.
Well, that's what I don't like. I think the veterans should be taken care of by the government. I don't think we should have to support them, you know.
I agree with you wholly.
I mean, not that I don't want to support them or anything.
No. But that is, the government owes them that,
Yeah, right,
and not have to go to the citizenry to
right.
help support them. Well, you know, politics and politics.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
My goodness sakes. Okay, so you came back into Shanks, then you went to San Luis Obispo, and then back to Kentucky.
Yeah, Fort Campbell.
And did you learn to bake, to be a baker?
Well, I tried at it. We had a civilian baker and cook teaching us and that, you know.
Right, right.
I remember on Thanksgiving, we could make the turkey, and we had to make the gravy, you know. Kept putting that flour in there, and adding water, pretty soon it wouldn't thicken, then it started thickening, it got like concrete. I don't think anybody ate that. We had so much spices and everything in it.
Oh my gosh. Well, then you were separated at Fort Knox, were you?
No, Atterbury, Indiana.
Oh, at Atterbury,
Wasn't that where? Yeah, Atterbury.
outside of Indianapolis.
That's where I met Alan at Atterbury, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
After
Right.
Columbus, after we got our training, when
Right.
I come back from overseas, I met him when we was being separated.
Right, right. Of course, you built up your points.
Well, I needed 1 point to get out before I went to Fort Campbell. And that,
Oh.
So I had to spend another 10 months in the Army.
Oh my gosh, to get that point.
Yeah.
How about that? How about
But I don't regret it. It was nice.
Well, you know, your attitude, and I know your family appreciates that so much. We here can see your attitude and your spirit, and your not only your willingness to do this and that, but your determination to carry it out and make it work. And that's what our great nation is all about too, hopefully. So then you got out of the Army, and we're talking what, 1940, late 1945 or 46?
46, yeah.
46.
Yeah, June 46.
June 46. Boy, you were in a long time.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. Only 23 months.
And
No,
then
it was-
you came back to old Arlington Heights?
No, my mom, she had moved down in the valley, down Carthage.
Okay.
And that's, we pretty well lived. Well, we moved there, she moved there in 44. And that's
Mhm. Had you lost your dad by that time, or what?
No, he didn't die until 75.
Oh, wonderful.
He was.
You had him a
let's
long
see.
time.
No, he was 77. He was 75 when he died in 77.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And
All
Of
right.
his mother, she lived till 96.
Wonderful.
But she was the last 5 years she was in a nursing home. She
Ah.
had dementia.
I see.
We had to
see.
put her in a home. So.
Well, now, what about your railroad experience?
Well, cold.
You operated out of Union Terminal?
Sharonville.
Sharonville.
Yeah, of the New York Central, and then
Yeah.
then they went bankrupt and went with Penn Central. We merged with the Pennsylvania, And then they went bankrupt, and they formed Conrail, and that's where I retired from the Conrail.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, and they sold that off, you know. That's part of the Norfolk Southern and the Chessie system.
Right.
See, the Chessie system bought earlier on. They bought the B&O, C&O, ACL, SAL, most of the eastern lines up in there. And of course, the Norfolk Southern, the Southern and the Norfolk Western merged, so that.
Right.
But Cincinnati still owns a trackage of the Southern Railroad to Chattanooga, Tennessee.
How about that? How about that? A lot of people don't know that.
No.
Yeah, that's something. Well, I came from the west, the northwest, and of course, now, you know, the Union Pacific, Southern Pacific, Northern Pacific, Great Northern, they've all merged.
Merged or went out of business.
And now they call it Burlington Northern.
Yeah.
Of all things.
Yeah, when I first we got married, we went to California on a pass in '55, I think it was. And we had 22 cars in the train, and that conductor said 50% of us was on passes.
Really?
Yeah, we got to Albuquerque, New Mexico. They shut the heat off. They were trying to discourage people from riding the trains, you know, and that.
Really?
Yeah, because my sister-in-law was in from California, and she went down there to get a ticket. They said, go over and take a plane. We don't want the business. They didn't want the passenger business. I mean, yeah, because it was interfering with their freight hauling. You know?
Right, right. And you know, that, to me, that is a real sad thing, that this nation cannot have a viable passenger rail.
Yeah. Well,
system.
you better not delay them. When I was working, we had that 20th Century Limited going to New York and that, you know.
Oh, yeah.
He'd come out of the terminal, the wheels were sliding on one of the cars, and if it's cold, brakes froze up on it. So they said, be over there at Murray Road and Vine by Proctor there, and he says, see if you can get what you can do with that train. He says, we don't want him delayed. He says, he's already delayed about a half an hour, you know. So we went over, sledgehammer and pin and knocked one of the pins out, and out of one of the cars, and it was a sleeper. Well, they had one called ahead and had one at Cleveland waiting for him, you know, to exchange it, you know. But they were really hot. The passenger trains was really hot, and you had to be in the office if you delayed them for some reason or the other.
So you, well,
I was in the mechanical department. We repaired them, worked the air brakes and everything in there.
head for the roundhouse, Mother.
No, I wasn't in the
You
roundhouse.
weren't in the roundhouse.
No, that's too dirty of a job, that roundhouse. Got to get in them, clean them fireboxes out.
Oh,
Gee,
boy.
man.
Tough work, tough. And of course, the Union was very strong.
Oh, too strong, really.
Yeah.
They ruined the railroad, really.
Yeah, right.
We used to get double time and a half for a holiday and that, you know.
Double time.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, with your 38 and a half years, you probably have a pretty good pension, huh?
Oh, yeah. I get about almost $2,000 a month, so.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's just terrific.
But we was paying high pension. See, the railroad retirement was separate from the regular federal Social Security.
Right.
They formed them separate. Well, in 75, they merged the railroad and Social Security. So when I retired and started, I was qualified for Social Security because I worked moonlight at grocery stores for about 27 years beside the railroad.
Right.
And when I started on at 62, I retired at 61, and when I turned 62, I started getting my Social Security. Well, they cut that $250 a month because I was drawing the railroad, see. So,
Oh, I see.
but I'm satisfied. I got a nice pension.
Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. You certainly have deserved that, and we didn't get anything out of the Army, you know.
No, well, I could have, but when I come out, the guy says, you got any disabilities? I said, well, I had frostbitten hands and feet. And he says, I said, but I want to get out of the Army. I don't want to monkey with it. He said, well, we'll put it on your record. Well, they didn't put it on my record, so I went to see about it a couple years ago, just in case something would come up, you know.
Sure.
And they said it's been too long. Well, I went to Sharonville. They had a meeting, and there was about 100 guys, And I was the only Second World War veteran there. All the rest was Korean.
Is that right?
And Vietnam veterans.
How about that? Well, I bet they were glad to see you.
Yeah, well, I don't know. An old man like
An
that.
old timer, I should say.
Yeah, we had one when we went to Washington. There was one guy who was 99 years old, and he was in a
Is
wheelchair.
that so?
I said, what is he from the World War I? No, he said, no, Second World War.
Is that so? Well, he was an old man when he went in, man.
Yeah. Well, we had a couple of regular Army guys with the train with. One guy, I remember him, Harper, or he was in physical condition, and he was 48 years old.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he could run with all of the best of us and everything.
Isn't that
We
something?
walked that 28 mile, you know, the end of our training. He
Sure.
was right along with us and everything.
Sure. Well, I can remember having officers who were maybe 30, 32 years old, and we thought they were really old. They were
Yeah,
old.
right.
They were really old. Well, William, it's just been a great pleasure to talk with you and hear your stories and to get acquainted, and of course to know your brother-in-law, Alan, who I see every month, and maybe you'll come and join our group sometime.
Yeah, okay.
7:30 on the first Friday of the month, and we'll take anybody.
Yeah. Yeah. How about midgets?
No, we don't worry about that. So listen, we've had the great time with William Hosmer, and he's been a wonderful person to get to know and to talk about and talk with, and I know that your family is going to enjoy seeing this and hearing your stories, and this kind of brings it together, you know. Now you don't have to, unless you want to, you know, tell the stories over and over again.
Yeah.
Just bring out the DVD.
Yeah, yeah.
But there'll be a copy here left at our library, and one for you and your family, and
Oh,
one
that's
will be sent
wonderful.
to the Library of Congress.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So your history, Willie, and you're on the record.
Yeah.
And it's been a wonderful opportunity, and thank you and a pleasure.
Okay, yeah.
God bless you.